Hey everybody, it is Connor and Chris with Metal Inside Me. Today's interview, we interview Australian heavy band 10,000 Crows. Chris, do you want to give a little brief intro of what we talked about during this interview?
Sure. So 10,000 Crows is a metal band from Australia. And over the course of the interview, we talked about how they make their music, some of the themes going into this new record that they have releasing, as well as some more serious topics, such as feminism in metal and the relationship between listeners and the artists in the case that artists end up doing some things that are not exactly moral or yeah, not
Yeah,
good.
I think a good way to explain that is we kind of cover the topic of separating the art from the artist and the challenges that are faced with a listener who's experiencing that.
Yeah, we talk a little bit about when you should and when you shouldn't, right? As well as I think that 10,000 Crows put out the basic axiom of, hey guys, don't rape anybody. And I think that's basically the take-home message of the more serious portion of our interview.
Yeah, I agree with that. And on a lighter note, 10,000 Crows has released two singles so far, and they are absolutely killer. Me and Chris
Yeah,
really recommend you go listen to them.
yeah. These guys are really on top of it, crushing stuff. They compare themselves to Justice for the Damned. That is definitely an apt comparison. Although I would argue that they have found their own sound and they are killing it.
Yep, I agree. And timestamp to what portion that starts is going to be in the description. The interview starts. And now we're going into the point of the podcast where me and Chris kind of just talk about what's going on in the metal world, kind of just have a conversation. And so, what we kind of want to talk about today is the fact that Code Orange is absolutely killing it with what does a metal band do right now during when you can't perform live.
Yeah, yeah. So the heavier topics got um, incidentally covered in the interview itself. So we're just talking about something a little more lighthearted, which is how Code Orange has really been on top of things since the pandemic started. You know, I can remember that Connor and I were together filming one of these podcasts. Just when the pandemic was really getting super serious here in the States. It was the weekend where everything really just sort of got real. And I remember that weekend, Jamie of Code Orange, he did an interview with Anthony Fantano,
Hmm.
and we saw it on Reddit before it was on YouTube.
Hmm.
And he was talking about how they were going to do something to try to compensate for the fact that it really didn't look like anybody was going to be doing anything for a while.
Hmm.
And it turned out that one day later, you and I were watching a live stream of a concert of their new album, as well as some old songs, without any audience present.
And
Uh,
it was amazing.
it was fantastic.
It
Last
prompted
ones
me
left.
it
Yeah.
prompted me to buy this shirt from them.
Yeah. I remember you ordered the shirt on that day. That was
Yeah.
fantastic.
Oh, I know.
Yeah.
And ever since
Um,
then, they have had a really vibrant social media presence. And the reason we're talking about them today is a couple weeks ago, towards the end of August, they kind of did their own, like, they almost did like an award show before they did an acoustic long set, which was very interesting. And I think it, garnered quite a bit of attention and views.
Yeah. So I have to assume that all of that happened at once. I mean, obviously it did happen all at once. What I really mean is I have to assume that on Twitch or whatever streaming service they were using, they had to have performed all of that at once. So you had the Mudbangers Ball, clearly a homage to the Headbanger Ball that used to appear on MTV,
I think
which
was
was,
that host the guy who used to do that.
I'm not really sure. Neither of
I think
us.
he talked about it. He was like, I used to whatever. But
Yeah. Yeah, I'll be honest with you. I'm not old enough to be familiar with Headbangers Ball. I'm really sorry. But I am old enough to know that that is what it is an homage to.
mhm.
Um, nevertheless, they put together this really cool collaboration between a lot of artists, followed by an acoustic set, which I thought went very well, um, particularly since it was so different from what we've come
Hmm.
to expect from Code Orange. Even if you go all the way back to early Code Orange Kids stuff, it's still very, very heavy.
Hmm.
And even if you go to Adventures stuff, which that band is comprised by mostly Code Orange members, um, it's not that, right? It's much more alternative music. It's more lighthearted music. It's not nearly as heavy or in your face. It's a completely different genre of music, but it's not quite in the same vein as what we heard when we heard a curse acoustic Code Orange, right? That was millions of comments about how this was so Alice in Chains influence.
Oh, I know. Did you
Yeah.
notice that Reba Meyer said her guitar style is heavily influenced by Alice in Chains during the
Ye-
Mudbangers Ball portion?
Yeah, and I think that's actually pretty evident in
Yeah.
their rhythm guitar in general. Lots of power chords. Now, I would say that her right hand is a little less Alice in Chains than her left hand,
Yeah.
but yeah, I can definitely see it.
Yeah, for
So
sure.
yeah,
And I thought it was really cool that during the Mudbangers Ball portion, they were basically just promoting all of the biggest hardcore bands that are currently out there. Turnstile,
yeah,
Bane, Jesus Priest, and even Jesus Priest during their set, they talked about Knocked Loose. So we covered all of them.
yeah. There you
Yeah.
go. Oh my
And
gosh, yeah.
during me and Chris's previous podcast with forgive me, it is a crap, I'm forgetting it. Court Order. When we interviewed them, they even talked about how Code Orange has really set the precedent for a lot of bands with the live streaming. Live.
Yeah, yeah, no, absolutely. I mean, I think that it was something that was bound to happen, right? Because live streaming in general has become an incredibly popular medium in the last few years. Um, and so I think it's actually quite smart of a band like Code Orange or any of the other bands that have also taken that step to just live stream music. Or live stream whatever, because right now is a time to develop alternative revenue sources because it's a rough time,
Yeah,
you
it's
know?
true.
Yeah.
Very true. And yeah, I think that pretty much covers it. And I think we are going to jump into our interview with 10,000 Crows. Thank you guys for listening, and we'll see you next time.
Yeah. So we'll just go ahead and jump into the interview then. I know we just introduced ourselves to one
Yeah.
another, but we're going to have you
Go
guys,
again.
if you could just say your names again and tell us what you do in the band, that'd be great.
Uh-huh. Hey, what's up? I'm George. I do vocals and production in 10,000 Crows.
I'm Jordan, and I just do the guitar.
Oh, you do so many more things, man. Come on.
I'm a simple, I'm
Come
a
on.
simple string boy. What else?
Well, and we know you guys hired a drummer with this previous single, and I believe on the newest single, and we'll get to that in a minute. But why don't you guys go ahead and tell us the story about how 10,000 Crows came together?
It's a long one. It's not really that long. It's pretty simple. Like we were in a band in 2014, I think it started. We were in an old band called Skyon that was really like post-hardcore, alternative emo sort of stuff, which was really cool at the time.
Like that sempiternal Bringing the Horizon sound, Amity Affliction, Chasing
Yeah,
Ghosts.
very Amity Affliction
That's
style.
very much what the sound was we were going for.
Yeah, and we're actually like we were doing pretty well at our peak. I think our last big show we supported Dance Gavin Dance when they came down to Sydney,
Which was fun.
and then that just kind of dissipated. I think all members just kind of went in different directions. George and I stayed on, and we just started recording music, but didn't release it. And we just started. We had like about 40 demos by the end, and we're like, "What are we going to do with all this stuff?" And we just thought, let's just start new music. But that actually became another band called Haunt, which we did release one song of, which is still on YouTube if you can find it. But that wasn't really doing anything for us. We weren't really that satisfied with it. And we're listening to all these really amazing heavy bands that were coming out at the time. This was like 2018, and then we just kind of thought like, fuck, like we should just get in on this. Like we're both really good at writing like the heavy kind of stuff.
Yeah, I think we just very much work extremely well together, and in terms of churning out material in a lot of different genres, we've just done that at to the nth degree. And then with that other band, we released it, and I think I was moving into a bit more of a digital marketing career, and we were kind of just sort of working through your 20s and kind of figuring life out, and that project was cool, and we were really stoked with it. But then I think we were hearing bands like Justice for the Damned and Code Orange. We were like, okay, we have always listened to deathcore, we listen to death metal, like we've always listened to heavy stuff, like no singing, let's just go.
Yeah,
and quote unquote, the sort of cliff notes for the band, I think, is like, or the concept for me was like, let's just write heavy music. Like it doesn't matter if it's deathcore, it doesn't matter if it's hardcore. Like our whole influence from all the records we've listened to, all the songs we've written, like it'll come out how it needs to come out, and it comes out. I think this band, we have a little bit of a unique sound, so I think that's kind of cool. We're not trying to be like, we are gent technical avant-garde metalcore with jazz. It's like we just do our thing, and we actually say it to each other. We've tried to do that before. Let's try and write this type of song, and we say to each other, the songs will come out how they come out.
That's
one of the biggest lessons we learned.
Phrase.
One of the biggest lessons we've learned.
Yeah.
Right. So now that a few of the songs have come out, I'm interested if you guys think that there is a subgenre you fit into, or if you're just completely rejecting that even after the fact.
I don't go out of my way to reject it, but I couldn't really put it under one label, I guess. That's just the way we write, really.
I think I'm a genre guy, so I know I was just mocking that before, but I love sort of like really, folk, Viking folk metal or something. That's part of the fun of metal, right? It's like this band kind of combines this genre and this genre and this genre, and I think that's part of the conversation that comes out, which is really cool. So, for me, I thought we sounded a certain way, and I think people have told us we sound a different way. So, you tell us what we sound like, and I will probably agree with you. Because we're not like a band that goes, oh, no, we're not deathcore. Like, if you call us deathcore, we'll be like, fuck yeah.
Yeah, like I love deathcore, I love gent, I love thrash metal, like, and there's influences of that in all our music as well. Like, the second song coming out does not sound anything like the first song, really. Like, the few, like, similarities here and there, but, like, tonally wise, you'll understand it's very, very different when it comes out.
Yeah, no, I absolutely. I was about to say, when Connor sent over to me The Empress, I remember that the subgenre moniker,
that's right.
that I shot back to him was Behemoth Core.
Oh yes,
yeah, because with those tremolo riffs and everything combined with this sort of like hardcore through line, that was just sort of what I felt. But when I listened to the Hangman, it was entirely different. It was a definitely some deathcore influence, but very hardcore. And I could tell even with the vocals that it was sort of like Code Orange on steroids, So I definitely agree with you guys that you're very versatile. I was just sort of picking your brain about what you thought of yourselves,
No, that's cool. I love that Behemoth Core. Like, I'll take that. I'll take that. I think we're trying to channel the black metal stuff. Like, we were writing a song just before today, and we're trying to channel more of that black stuff, listening to bands like Gorgoroth, Necrot. I mean, Necrot a bit more death metal, but, more of that sort of non-core based stuff to try and bring into the core, which I think is kind of like a little bit of an interesting place we can exist in.
Yeah.
I agree. One thing I would like to add to that is, me and Chris, we do a lot of interviews with bands, and we find it very refreshing when we can actually have like a conversation where, like, Chris, what do you think the influences are on this? I mean, because like when we first listened to it, it doesn't sound like an exact subgenre, and I'm very much a subgenre guy like you. I mean, nice. I like to take the bands, but to answer your question, if I had to put my finger on it, I would say hardened deathcore.
Yeah, cool.
Yeah. Nice.
that's cool.
I'll fucking take that, bro. Like, and
Yeah.
honestly, as long as people are listening and talking about it, I'm happy, you know? So,
The funny thing is, like most of the words thrown out at the moment, like deathcore, black metal, and stuff. But the biggest influence for me writing is like System of a Down and like Deftones. Like that's where most of the riffs really come from, and then you just take modern influences and mix them together.
Yeah. I didn't think of it while I was listening to it, but now that you say System of a Down, I can see a little bit of that in the guitar work, with the power chords sort of car crashed against the tremolo on the strings.
That's exactly what it's.
100%. Yeah, we
Yeah.
say that to ourselves sometimes. It's like, how would you describe the band? Thy Art is Murder crossed with System of a Down.
Yeah.
And that's kind of like the simplicity in the riffs. We're not doing noodly, shreddy, leads and stuff. Maybe that'll come into play down the track, who knows? But, there's that simplicity rhythmic thing that Darren Malakian does.
Yeah.
Right.
I love that all their riffs are just so simple and they just sound so hard hitting. Like that's what I love about it.
So let's talk a little bit about your songwriting process. So you guys said you had like 40 demos or something like that. When you guys sit down to make a song, how does that work?
Jeez. There's a few different ways you can go about it. Generally, I'll be at home just writing a riff, like just with no drums or anything in mind. I just try and write a riff, and then I bring it to George. And we've got a little setup here, which we're at the moment, where all the magic happens, and we just piece it together, really, bit by bit.
Yeah, so before I really moved, my main day jobs in digital marketing, like I was really pursuing audio engineering and producing, and a lot of my early 20s I spent on that. So what's really cool about our band is we are very self-sufficient in terms of doing things. I don't mix anything. I really hate mixing. I'm much more like song structure, overall recording guy. I love somebody dope to mix it because it's mixing scares me. It was one of those things that was always very tough for me. So Geordie brings in a riff and we kind of piece it together as he says, and he's sitting there and I'm sitting here recording, and it's just like, I'll do this. Why don't we try that? Or, I'm programming drums. And then, at the end of the day, we're going back and forth, sharing files, just refining the song until we can get it to the stage where, we're saying, hey, this can either start, I can start working on some vocals here, or let's send this off for drums and recording drums.
Yeah.
So definitely something I want to ask about now. So obviously I assumed you program your drums, but then you hired out a drummer to fill in those spaces. Were you giving some leeway for that hired drummer to kind of add his own spice to it?
100%.
Yeah, like I think with the Empress more so, with the Hanged Man, it was pretty simple, straightforward. Like there wasn't really it's a minute 50 song. There's not really too much room to
Just
deviate. But with Empress,
but in that riff,
songs,
Jackson did that little
the little splash
and he did the
things,
little like the Andals from Chimera, splashy thing.
Jackson's
cool.
fucking sick. Like he really puts his own spin on even like the basic riffs, which is really cool to have. But yeah, there's not because neither of us are drummers, so when we're programming drums, like George is really really good at it.
And I'm not one of those octopus drummer dudes. I don't like, some of these guys, they do 8 hits at once. I'm very good at doing practical stuff, but we need the fills, we need the little intricate moments, like the way the cymbals are hit. That was one huge thing for this band was making it sound a bit more real, because every other band we've been in, it's been programmed drums, and I'm just so bored of it.
Yeah. I should probably add, obviously this is not a question, but the blast beats on the Hanged Man do sound very natural. And I feel like that's probably a good compliment issue, because it does not sound like an octopus.
Yeah.
So nice job on that, guys.
No, thank you. And I think that also comes down to Declan White, who's our engineer mixing guy who we've worked with for a number of years, and he just has this fat organic sound. I feel he's not like this super digital genty sort of sound. It's a much rounder, fatter thing. So he lets the natural snare come through a lot more and doesn't load it up with samples. Like a record that I'm really into right now is that Ingested record. I can't remember the name of it, but that second track when the blast beats come in, it sounds dope, but it's just like, and I'm like, we're never going to do that. I don't think we're going to try and really keep that more organic sound.
Yeah.
Yeah.
One thing I'm always interested asking bands about is, what is the relationship and conversations like with the engineer who mixes and masters? Are you just kind of going back and forth all the time, and you giving your input, and he's saying, "Hey, I think maybe we add something else here." Kind of talk us through that.
Well, once the song's done, I bounce out all the stems. So, we basically, we've got the song there. We've got the drum sent from Jackson. Bass has been recorded by Jordan. Guitars by him. We send Declan DIs. So what DIs are, I don't know if you guys know, but maybe the audience doesn't know. Is basically it's the raw guitar sound so that he can add his own distortion and effects on top to make it blend in within his sounds. Same goes for the bass. We send in the DI, and then the vocals are raw as well. Some things like some particular delays, or like if there's a particular effect that we need, like an atmospheric thing, I will send that to him as well as the clean version, just so he either uses that one or tries to emulate that. And then he just goes for it. He just does his thing. And then literally the hanged man, I sent him the tracks and he's like, hey man, I'm just going to have a play around with this. 45 minutes later, boom. I honestly, the song was done like literally just two notes, which was just like, can you just make this bit a little bit louder and this bit a bit soft? I think it was some vocal layers or something. Boom, done. Empress, on the other hand, that took a lot more back and forth because there was a lot more dynamics in that song, and to get the nuances right with the vision that we had took a little bit more work. But hey, we got there in the end, and he's going to be mixing, all of the foreseeable, tracks in the future. So that's basically it. And as I said, like, the more I can take my hands off the wheel with mixing, the better.
Right. So on the topic of the vision that you had for these songs, I want to talk about lyrics and thematics. So generally, what is your approach to writing lyrics? Like, do you take them very seriously? Are they sort of ancillary? And additionally, what is sort of the theme for these songs that you're going for?
I think most of our lyrics, it's they're not as deep as they might seem on first look. Like, I don't know, you wrote most of the Hanged Man.
Yeah.
I wrote most of Empress.
I think it's we're evolving as lyricists, and I think conceptually when we think of tarot, this tarot card series that we're doing, the Hanged Man and the Empress, they're almost like little mini stories. I look at them as that's what we're trying to achieve, is like this, the artwork, the song, the lyrics, it all feels like its own little homogenous little concept. So, the Hanged Man is kind of like about somebody, on their last moments about to die, and those sort of desperate high screams and blast beats at the end is sort of like the last moments of your life. And then Empress is much more sort of this badass character that we came up with the Empress, and she's just cutting fools down and taking names, and just like a different sort of more fun kind of song, I would say.
Yeah.
But sort of theatrical.
Our lyrics are much more literal, I've realized, than like metaphorical or anything. It's all very like there's not really much hidden meaning. It's just all laid out in front of you.
But it could change and it'll evolve. But I think we're just leaning into the concept and trying to nail the concept as best as we can.
Yeah.
Got it.
Thanks. So one thing we want to ask about is your marketing approach, because in my opinion, obviously, I think you're doing a fantastic job. I mean, I know you're putting a lot of thought into your single artwork. I know you're putting a lot of thought in getting your song out there, and obviously you've said your career's in digital marketing. How do you approach that?
Man, thank you so much. Like that really makes me smile, because I think what's been an advantage for us is like we are a little bit older, and I had 3 years away of not, as much as we were jamming and stuff, I had basically 3 years away from not doing much audio and like taking time out. And I remember I used to listen to songs like so intently, like and I'm just at a much better place with that stuff. And I think and all I've learned through digital marketing in my career there, in my 9 to 5, I've brought that into our stuff. And I think, just trying to maximize each piece of content. A big discussion we had at the beginning of the band was like, what are we going to do to release? And No, I'm not one of those people that's very sad about what the guy from Spotify said. I sort of like, I'm embracing that. And I think the nature of music is changing. Like, did I love albums in the 90s and 2000s? Yes. Am I an album guy? Yes. But, the strategy of doing singles and whatnot is huge. And then, Geordie really pushed, all credit goes to Geordie on terms of the visual look of things, because how many times have we seen like the two dudes standing in the warehouse wearing their fucking
Yeah, some
shirts,
band
like
t-shirts with a band logo on it.
awesome, like go do your thing, like great. I'm never going to try and say don't do that or whatever, but for us and what we wanted to do, Geordie really pushed that. And for us to have a bit more of a visual personality, leaning into a bit more cosplay even, and visual K Japanese band influence, we're just trying to do something a little bit different. So when we pop up in your feed on Instagram, it's like, oh, I'm paying attention a bit more. And we're not forcing it. Like, we're massive horror fans, we're massive anime fans. Like, if the movie doesn't have blood and something terrifying in it, I'm not going to be really wanting to go and watch it. So, that's the marketing, I guess, is an extension of, to summarize this really long-winded answer. I'm so sorry, but to summarize is taking all that I've learned from like clients working and bringing it into what we love, and just trying to extend that out to the world and maximize the songs as best as we can.
Yeah.
One thing I would really like to compliment you on is you released a music video on your very first single. I mean, that gave you such a leg up to get people's attention. That's how you got my attention. Came up on my TikTok
Interesting. Cool.
feed, a fantastic music video with just that brutal intro in the Hanged Man, and that's why we're talking right now.
That was the most painful 4 hours of my life, filming that music video.
Yeah.
I was actually blind, and they made me crawl through the dirt, and they were like dragging me around on the floor, and there was like shit all down like my back, and like I was cut and bruised.
And
I
there was
like,
families
sick.
walking around the park, like there was like moms with their prams and with like, hey, how you guys doing? Like, can you move a bit out of the frame? We're trying to get this guy's like, he's about to die. So like, we really want to convey this
Yeah,
properly.
there's like families with kids and stuff, and, and I'm just against a tree, and George is like, all right, give me like a blood curdling scream, and I'm like, Jesus, all right.
But that was all Geordie as well. Like, obviously I took a bit more of the role in terms of putting it together, but in terms of like pushing the music video, Geordie was like, we have to do a video, dude, that is super important. And I was like, man, it's gonna be a lot of work. But for every release now, we are doing a video. Like Empress has got a video coming out. It's been more of a visualizer lyric video, I would say, but it's still live action, properly put together. So we're really trying to take that visual side of the band super, super seriously. And yeah, kudos to this dude for getting in those bandages.
Yeah,
It's brutal.
The bandages got to keep evolving.
Yeah, sick. By the way, the tarot card aesthetic is really effective. It definitely makes me want to click on whatever you guys have to listen to.
Thanks, man.
Yeah. Aside from the thematics, it just works very well from a marketing perspective.
Thank
Now,
you,
I'd like
bro. We were actually talking the other day, like, how did that idea come up? And we don't remember.
Who came up with that?
We don't remember.
I can't remember. It just is.
It's like kind of creepy. And I'm seeing tarot card things everywhere now, like everywhere. And I'm like, this thing's following me, bro. But, yeah.
Right. So shifting gears a little bit, I know that Connor and I want to ask you guys about the metal scene in Australia / where you guys are specifically. So what is the metal scene like over there?
It's strong.
It's good.
I'd say there's a lot of like, what I've noticed that's really interesting, if we talk about Australia as a whole, is like when we've gotten a lot of traction off TikTok. And I'm not worried about saying that. Like, we love TikTok. And, one huge thing that we've noticed is like when we say we're Australian, people are like, yo, the best bands come from Australia, man. And I'm like, huh, that's so interesting. But then they start listing them off. Parkway Drive, North Lane, Polaris, Alpha Wolf. Like, it's a pretty big list. Amity Affliction. Like, there's some really big premier sort of metalcore bands. So, we kind of like riding that bandwagon in a way, which is cool. But yeah, the scene's strong, right?
It is. I try to differentiate myself from it a little bit without like. There's a I don't know.
In the sound?
There's a certain direction that Australian bands tend to go. Uh, if you've heard of bands like Thornhill, Diamond Construct, Alpha Wolf, Wind Waker, all those kind of bands, like they're really really cool.
Dope.
But they're all they're very into like the kind of genty thrashy tech sort of thing going on at the moment.
Very clean.
Very like kind of architects based kind of sound.
Which we
and I'm
love.
like-
We love.
Yeah, like I'm super into it, but I'm like I just don't want to do that kind of music myself. I'm not interested in writing it, so I prefer to look more towards the like organic sort of raw thrashy sound. But I do love those kind of bands as well, and I think we've seen most of those bands like They Art and all that kind of stuff.
Seen them all.
I saw They Art in 2012 in like a 100-room capacity tiny thing, and it was fucking unbelievable.
And in saying that, like Diamond Construct's new EP, I think is dope. It's like got this dubstep sort of trap vibe to it. So I think their old stuff was maybe more in that style, but yeah, there is a lot of interesting stuff happening in Australia. The scene is strong. It's just like what's happening with COVID has kind of locked everything up. So
Yeah.
Yeah.
And
Yeah.
Alpha Wolf. You guys have heard of Alpha Wolf? Fucking check them out.
Yeah.
Unbelievable.
killer,
Yeah.
man.
Yeah, you guys have already totally covered this, but I was going to say there is a perception here in the United States that Australia is producing all the best bands. And specifically, they're producing the bands that are leading to this like new metalcore, new hardcore wave that we're riding. Being led by bands, like you said, like Alpha Wolf, Diamond Construct, and then, of course, Thy Art's got deathcore. And I was going to mention Dealer, but Dealer's over, so, you know, whatever.
Yes. R.I.P.
Yeah,
I don't know if you guys heard of a band called Gloom in the Corner.
Yeah.
They're kind of similar-ish sort of. The guy from Alpha Wolf produces their stuff, I believe. So there's kind of a little bit of a sound there.
Yeah.
Sick,
Yeah.
yeah.
They're pretty deathcore.
So it's interesting. So you guys see that. So why do you think, like, putting a question on you guys, why is that perception about Australian bands? Like, it's not like there's like UK bands. There's heaps of great UK bands, Bringing the Horizon, Architects. Like, why is there this Australian thing?
You know, I'm not really sure what the answer is. I have a couple of theories, one of which is that it has something to do with the popularity of like this new NU, you know, dash whatever resurgence that we're kind of getting. I think that there's a lot of through lines in the bands that we've mentioned, you know, Alpha Wolf and Diamond Construct and all those. I think Diamond Construct's new EP is very emblematic of like the way that a certain portion of metalcore is going right now. I also wonder if part of it just has to do with maybe the labels that those bands are signed to and the way in which that they are pushed to folks here in the States. Like I can only speak for myself really. I don't know. And then maybe some of it is just like internet feedback, you know, like if you look at like the big metal YouTube guys, like who do they talk about the most? It's Northlane, it's Thy Art, it's all those bands. And so I wonder if it's just like a few different factors that have fused together to make Australia sort of the epicenter of where metalcore and its adjacent genres are going. And at this point, I would pass my thoughts to Connor if he has any on this particular topic.
Yeah, one thing that's pretty different from your thought, Chris, that I think this thought is true. Chris, you tell me if this is accurate for you too. As someone from the States, I think that there is something there's something special about really liking a band and finding out they're from a cool place like Australia. It's like I'd heard Thy Art and really liked it, and then I'm like, oh, they're Australian? That's freaking sick. It's almost like this, like,
just adds a bit of X factor.
Yeah, exactly. There's almost like this coolness factor that gets added when you're someone from the States hearing it's from Australia.
Yeah.
Interesting.
I guess it doesn't always work the same way backwards, because when you find out a band's American, it's just like, oh,
yeah. I guess that's for us. It's like Japanese bands a little bit. There's like a little bit of X factor that comes from Japanese bands.
I'm super into Japanese heavy bands. Like that's like my main genre, if that is a genre.
Yeah, 100%.
Yeah, absolutely. I want to add, by the way, that something that just occurred to me while I was talking is that it might have something to do with the fact that a lot of bands blowing up in the States are bringing back like this mid 2000s hardcore resurgence. So like Knocked Loose, Code Orange, those bands. And there's definitely some connective tissue between those bands and say Alpha Wolf or Dealer. And so maybe part of it is that in the States, we're kind of having a hardcore revival. And you guys are sort of like a cousin to that in the type of music that's being produced in Australia. That just occurred to me while we were talking. Also, speaking of weird Japanese bands, I listened to the new music by Pale Dusk, and that was pretty wild. Are you guys familiar with them?
I listened to them yesterday. Oh, that was sick. I found them out. I'm surprised I hadn't heard of them before.
We were jamming that yesterday.
They're like a young Crystal Lake.
Yeah, I've been waiting for somebody to talk to Pale Dusk, talk about Pale Dusk too.
Yeah,
so
they just signed to Grayscale, which is kind of like, I mean, I was going to ask you before, like Unified is obviously one of the big labels, and Grayscale is now the sort of like they're the up and comer, but you know they're already like making waves.
Yeah, it's wild.
A cool sound, like very glitchy and I like that trap sound, you know. I quite like it.
But that's only really on their new EP. Like the other albums are more very like kind of Crystal Lakey style.
Yeah, when we listen back to the old stuff, I wasn't as keen on the new single. I think the new single's sounding really original and cool.
Yeah, I agree. I think that the very latest material is sort of finding their own lane. And I think that all the other stuff, you know, is really, really good. But as you guys know, as folks who are doing really good marketing, you know, part of really good marketing is finding a certain uniqueness in the market, right? So, yeah,
100%.
And just going all in.
Absolutely. Yeah.
So changing gears a little bit, kind of talk us about your vision for the band. What do you see coming up in the next year? What are your plans? What are your goals?
Tarot. Just gotta keep knocking them down.
Yeah.
Like we've literally, like, the analogy I use to describe it is like there's this train going, and it's the tarot card train, and we've got these singles to release, and we've got to put the tracks in front. You know, like we've got to produce all these videos, we've got to do all this content. You know, so yeah, we've got Empress, which is coming out on September 9th. I'm not sure when this is coming out, so that'll be out. And then we've got track 3, 4, and 5.
We're aiming track 3, like hopefully around December, tentatively. But
no. Earlier, man. Come on. October, November. Listen, we're trying to do it. Listen, don't listen to this guy, right? We're talking about this off camera.
I'm the realistic one.
We did a release cycle between Empress and Hangsman of about 7 weeks. So we're going to try and keep around that 2-month mark. Will it shift? You know, we want to make sure the songs are dope and the videos are dope. So, but I think, you know, the concept is trying to get as much material out as possible. And then, you know, we're already working on our release after that because, you know, there's bands like Acacia Strain and stuff which very much influence us. Like they had It Comes in Waves, or I think that was the name of the album that was released on Christmas Day 2019, and then they've been doing the this amazing release cycle for the EPs, but they're working on things in parallel, and they have these little projects going on individually, and I think that's how we sort of approach things. Also, there's, you know, MGK, the rapper, he's got that pop punk album coming out. You know, he's looking at things in little sort of clusters and stuff, and I think in a way we're a bit more in that category. So we've got an EP that we're working on now, and, you know, there's going to be a lot of things that we have to do in between there. But we realize, like, next year is a huge year for us. You know, if we can keep this momentum going, you know, we just want to get as much stuff in front of people as possible. So we've got our plan. We just need to execute it and keep it going.
Sick. All right. Awesome, guys. So we'll move into just sort of some fun questions now. So what is the most difficult thing that you guys have dealt with as a band? What has been your greatest struggle?
Ourselves.
For me, drums.
Yeah.
And also for me, Merch.
Merch.
Merch really keeps me up at night. Like I rack my brain about that shit because like it's such a big thing for us. But like, at the end of the day, like things come together. All right. It's just kind of like weeks at a time of at each other's throats about certain things. Then we'll get over it and then we'll find a compromise and then it's all good, But
I think we're good at trusting each other and knowing when to push back. And I think merch is a big one. We've got some new merch dropping with Empress that I'm super pumped about. Like we're trying to do things so different to what other bands are doing. So I'm really, really pumped about getting that stuff out there. But
maintaining like an original kind of image can be hard sometimes.
And I think in every part of your life, you are normally the person that gets in your way. Normally, all your friends and family are the ones encouraging you. Maybe not every scenario is the same as that, but I think generally, I found that a lot of people put barriers on themselves, and I think sometimes we do that, and we try and get through those moments and problem solve, and just just try and get as much stuff out there as possible where we can.
Yeah.
Drums.
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 Let's talk about drums. What's it about drums?
All right. When I write a song, like the song kind of comes together in my head, but the problem is because I'm not a drummer, when I bring it to George with a riff, I can't exactly describe or portray what I want the song to sound like. So it needs to be filtered through him and then into the production, and it ends up becoming not something that I envisioned originally. So then I've got to go back and retrack and be like, all right, we've recorded all that. That's cool. Now let's go back and change that beat completely into like a blast beat, and then we're good.
And so I'm the bad guy here. But it's hard when somebody goes, "Hey, dude, what do you want the drums to sound like?" Dung, dunga, dun, dunga. And it's like, "Oh fuck me, bro! It sounds like a Die on His murder fucking breakdown. Like, you gotta give me more, bro."
Yeah.
No, dude. I as a fellow guitarist, I go through the same thing, and I write a riff. I put it in the DAW, and then I start programming the drums, and I realize that I have to change the riff to accommodate the drums. It's bullshit. Yeah. I totally understand.
Yeah.
It's what people don't get with programming drums is like when drummers hit the cymbal, they're going da 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 da. They, like a lot of the time, they're not just going ksh, 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 ksh. They're doing this, and same with hi-hats. Da, 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 da. Like there's those little, you put in a little velocity, and they're going on the backbeat as well. It's getting nudged. So like, man, there's so much intricacy that a drummer brings to it that I think, people think it's okay to just program drums. Like if we could jam with a drummer, I think things would be somewhat easier in a way.
Yeah, man.
Are you guys looking for a drummer right now?
Nah.
I think our point of difference is the fact that we're a two-piece, the 21 Pilots of Deathcore, as I like to say, or hardened deathcore. I think, I honestly, do you guys watch this guy called the Punk Rock MBA?
Yeah, man. Yeah, dude.
So I think he's super perceptive on things, and I think one thing, he has a great video where he's talking about Lil Lotus and this other band that he has called It Dies First, and the emo rapper thing, and MGK, and sort of Post Malone flying the flag of rock now. And he has some very, very interesting ideas about how for example, okay, I'm sorry, I'm darting around here a little bit, but Bring Me the Horizon, right? Their newest single with Youngblood. It's Ollie Sykes, mate. There's nobody else is in the band there. So like I think the individual with Instagram, it's more about the individual these days. Like, do you remember the bassist? Do you remember the drummer? Like, I think it's going to be a lot more like personal brands interacting. So it's like super groups. Anyway, who knows where things go? I think there's room for everyone, but I think for us, that's one of our points of difference. And we will play live at one stage. I'm pretty sure we'll get there, but will it be like more of a Nine Inch Nails-y kind of thing where we have like regular touring people? I would say that's probably where it would be.
Yeah.
So back to the flip side of the question Chris just asked, what is the most meaningful, special moment you've had as a band so far?
Probably hearing, for me, when I heard the mix of The Hanged Man, and because that was the first time we had a song mixed like that, with that really heavy production, and it like almost brought a little like tear to my eye. Like it was so nice. I was so unprepared for that.
Yeah, when that riff comes in, like the halftime riff, it was just like, thank Christ, man, we did it. We fucking did it.
All those nights and yeah.
Yeah, I think a little win for us was selling out of our first batch of merch. For me, I think like I didn't think we would do merch on this first run, but the first week went really well, and we were like, okay, let's whip some shit together, and we have people that are messaging us and commenting, and I just think like the release of the Hanged Man, I'm super proud of. So yeah,
Yeah.
Yeah. Nice, guys. All right. Um, Connor, do you have another question, or should we open it up?
Let's open it up.
So we're reaching the point in the interview, guys, where if you have any questions for us, if you have anything you want to plug, if you have anything you want to cover that we haven't touched on, please just go ahead and bring it up or plug it or whatever.
what have you guys been listening to that's been cool?
Boy,
Fuck the
Connor, you
plug.
want to Connor, you want to go first or me?
Yeah, I'll go first. So I kind of started my becoming a metalhead, listening to the classics, Metallica, and then getting into the 2000 stuff, Slipknot, and
Nice.
kind of slowly progressing, getting into deathcore and all the cores. And so as of recently, I've been on a hardcore, just a big wave of that. So
Sick.
bands that are adjacent to that: Alpha Wolf, Dealer, Vane, Turnstile,
Vane,
Codeborn.
bro.
I mean, I'm on a big core high recently.
Nice.
And yeah, there's been a lot of good music this year.
You listen to Justice for the Damned?
Yes. Oh,
Yeah, they're pretty, I'd say, in that sort of realm.
Yes, for sure.
Yeah, we sort of know Justice for the Damned a little bit.
We played with them a couple of times back in the good old
our
days.
old band played with them, yeah, a fair few times. We supported who was it that was big? Buried in Verona.
Buried in Verona.
We supported Buried in Verona together. That was a really cool gig, actually.
Yeah.
Crazy. That was a long time ago.
Yeah, that was like 2015.
What about you, Chris? Any recommends we need to be aware of?
Gosh. Yeah, I've been on a little bit of just like a going back through music that I missed sort of thing right now, and so I've been listening to a lot of Silent Planet, which is not a like obviously everybody knows about Silent Planet, but I just totally missed them, and I went back and listened to Panic Room, and I was like, Jesus Christ, these guys are on it. So I've listened to a lot of that. I've been listening to a death metal band called Vitriol quite a bit, which is also very good. And then, of course, I've been keeping up with the new Alpha Wolf singles, and I have been sulking over the dissipation of Issues, which disappoints me. Yeah.
Oh man.
Fuck, man.
The scene.
We had a good chat about that like before. Like,
Yeah.
It's so easy to make it as a musician, man. Just don't fucking like harass people, like that's,
I know.
Just like
That's
don't
the
rape
golden
anybody.
formula.
Like it's pretty simple, man.
Yeah, it's not
Yeah,
a
dude.
hard thing to do.
I know,
like
right?
that Mikey Sawyer guy, his statement, he's copped so much stuff over the years, and who knows what happened. But if that is the way things went down, shoo, it's a bad
fucked up.
time, man. There's a lot of things that happen there's a lot of turbulence in the world right now, and fuck.
Yeah, I was never a fan of Issues. To me, Tyler Carter's kind of like a washed out Johnny Craig, and like I know Johnny Craig
Did you get any more washed out than Johnny Craig though? Like,
he's washed out in himself, but at least
like
he's
inverted
got
in on
like,
itself.
He's got the talent to back it up. For me, anyway.
Yeah. No, I mean,
I got a photo with him. So he's my hero.
So obviously there are a ton of ways that people address issues like this. A lot of people like to jump to art and the artist and all that sort of thing, but it really is just kind of painful how these things sort of retroactively poison experiences that you've had. So me particularly, it's irritating because one of the best shows I ever went to was an issue show. And I went because it was just as Sleep Token was starting to blow up.
Oh, nice.
And they were opening for Issues, and so I went and I saw Sleep Token, Polyphia, and Issues. It was a great show, and now I can never look at it the same way, like regardless of how things pan out, which is That's an interesting thing with music and art and everything else is the emotional connection and how fragile it is.
Yeah. Some
But
people can distance themselves from the artists themselves and still enjoy the music, and some people just can't. And that's just like, I don't think either one's really wrong. Like
Yeah.
I still like Michael Jackson's music. I
yeah,
can't say much about him as a person, but like made some fucking great songs.
Yeah.
I highly encourage, I think this is a really, really in-depth topic, and I highly encourage everyone to go watch a video by Lindsay Ellis where she talks about J.K. Rowling and the sort of, the art, the death of the author kind of thing. It's a very, very interesting piece because it's very, very complex. There is no right answer, wrong answer. It's all very gray. And I think really with the Tyler Carter thing and everything that's going on in the world right now, there's a lot of collateral damage going on right now. But, you know, you got to be accountable for your actions. Even us, we launched our single in July 22nd, and we've got young fans messaging us. We're sending them stickers and stuff, just like our tarot card sticker and the logo. You could, some individuals could really take advantage of some of these people, and they have taken advantage of them. So, we want to stay well clear that we're in entertainment. And, we just want people to have a good time. At the end of the day, what's so interesting and what's been so great about coming back to the metal scene, as I said before, 3 years out. And it's like, I've met so many cool people from around the world with just this band. Like, if it ended tomorrow, I'd be stoked with all the people. And that's what's so awesome about metal. And if everyone can just be more accountable and, like, just do the right thing, and we will avoid all these situations.
Yeah. I really appreciate you saying that, man. We generally avoid serious topics on this podcast, but I'm in full agreement with you, and I also appreciate the Lindsay Ellis plug. She's a fantastic video essayist.
Oh, amazing. Yeah, well, I think a lot of bands, like, we don't know where this band's going to go, but I want to try and use it for spreading just positive energy out to the world. And, we're not going to be the most politically active band or anything, but in situations like this, when these things come up, I'll speak my mind and bring those things up. So, hey, listen, it's good to talk to you guys about these things.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Oh,
Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah, I think George and I both come from very like pro-feminist kind of backgrounds, like with the people that we grew up with. And I think a lot of people in Australia do as well. Obviously, with any country, there's always going to be a shit element with the people and just like bands and everything. But I think George and I lucky in the sense that
I would call myself a feminist for sure. And, we don't really want to, he probably will not like me talking about this, but an Empress in a way is of my feminist metal song. It's like, I'm sick of seeing all these death metal bands. I'm not sick of it. It's part of the genre. It's part of the genre conventions, but all these female corpses and stuff. And that's cool. That's this thing. But Empress is kind of like my little, hey, it's a little bit of a different take. So I would say, without it getting that's the headline, for the song, because we didn't really want it to do that. It's not a feminist song. It's just about this badass female character but in its own sort of roundabout way, it's like that. So he's probably going to kick my ass after this podcast, but it is what it is.
Yeah.
I like, in the lyrics that I write, I don't want to have any message either positive or negative. I try to keep it really distant from like the art side of things. For me, it's more just about like for me, like, because I'm super into like, deathcore and heavy stuff. Like, the heavier, the more brutal, the better. So for me, that's the kind of angle that I am approaching this with. Just like it's a song about this chick just killing armies with her army. It's fun, it's cool. That's the limit of the depth for me.
And we can bring positivity in our live streams, in our podcasts, in these interactions. It doesn't have to be like we're spreading a message directly through the music. So it can come out in other ways, I feel.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah. I don't think I've ever said this out loud before, but one of the lines at which I draw bands that I speak to versus bands I don't want to speak to is with like the grindcore misogyny. And so I apologize, but I'm basically using that as a springboard just to say that to the internet that
I've always had a weird thing with it. I've there's bands that's just like and Die Artist Murder, very interestingly, have kind of acknowledged that and said, "Hey, we're not going to write lyrics like that anymore." So, there is
Yeah.
an interesting conversation happening around those
But it's
things.
also interesting that it never really gets brought up. Like especially in today's like the Me Too kind of culture. Like, there's so many bands out there, even like famous bands like the Chili Peppers and stuff like that. They talk about like just sex and drugs like endlessly and that kind of stuff.
Mhm.
And it's never really addressed. Like it's not really
Yeah.
something that people care about that much. With stuff that actors say, like tweets from like 20 years ago, that kind of stuff, people care more about that than what like heavy bands are saying these days.
Yeah, if an actor, if Bradley Cooper or somebody said anything remotely about, related to WAP or one of those lyrics or something, like, at the end of him. The end.
Yeah. Yeah. You know,
Yeah, musicians
maybe
aren't really held as accountable.
maybe I shouldn't bring this up, but I'm actually a little surprised that Bring Me the Horizon has been able to completely get away from this, considering their first record is very much like teenager armchair misogyny with this Pray for Plagues and stuff.
Yeah.
But
And
but
there's a good
Yeah.
Finn McKenty, Punk Rock MBA, has a good video about it, talking about like, every 2000s metalcore band had the girl tied up in the basement, and it's like, that's really
Right.
fucked up, man.
Yeah.
Yeah, it was a strange time. Yeah. By the way, I'm not saying that Bring Me the Horizon should get canceled or anything. I'm just saying it's interesting that that's never been a conversation I've heard. No.
I think
Yeah.
more so. I think more so. It's the fact that we are talking about it now, and people weren't talking about it before. I think everyone's a lot more aware. So we're picking things apart a bit more, and I think that's what's cool about these kind of conversations. And the grindcore thing, like the misogynistic thing, like I will never say to somebody like. I'll never message them and be like, your band's shit because of this, and you do. I'm not going to do that, but we're just not going to be doing that type of thing. You know.
Yeah. I definitely need to add. I think people have the ability to grow and develop, and I think that they should. I'm not saying that anybody is a garbage human being.
Yeah.
Just just having a conversation about these concepts, right?
And I think you got to have conversations with people who have different thoughts and opinions to you, because I know we're not talking about metal right now, but like the thing is, people are existing in silos on message boards, and they're just in these echo chambers, and they're not talking to people. I had a conversation with somebody who has very, very different views to me the other day, at a personal, like, polite human being interaction, perfectly polite, but it got to a place where I was like, man, this guy's a piece of shit. But I was not going to say to him in that conversation, you're a piece of shit. I'm going to try and spread a little bit. I'm going to try and change your thinking. Maybe I'm not going to do it today. Maybe I'm not going to do it tomorrow. Maybe I'll never do it, but maybe I can just sprinkle a little something in there that maybe gets you thinking. Anyway, this is probably going to a completely different spot to where we're going, but I'm very interested in some of these topics, and it's good to talk to you guys about it.
No, absolutely. I think that Connor and I are very happy to talk about this, because I think that metal or hardcore, or whatever, really should be a place of inclusion and cohabitation. And I know that Connor and I have some very different fundamental beliefs about the world, and yet we coexist together. And so these are values that we hold very highly. And I know Connor's been trying to speak for like 10 minutes, so I'm going to hand it over to him. But yeah, we agree with you. Yeah.
No, I just really appreciate this conversation and everything that's been said. It's not a conversation that comes up a lot in the metal world. But yeah, I mean, I'm here for it. I mean, I'm that's the point of this podcast. I mean, we want to get to know bands, but also if we get into these serious subjects and spread positivity, that's what we're about.
Yeah.
No, we
Cool.
appreciate it, man. And like, you guys seem like really nice dudes, and thanks for reaching out and having us and having a chat about some tangential things.
Yeah, absolutely. And I think that Connor and I, we think you guys are doing a great job. And everything we've heard from you guys has been absolutely sick. Marketing, you guys are on it. So excellent job, and thank you for giving us some of your time. Yeah.
Yes.
Thanks so much, guys.
Thank you so much. Hopefully we can do it again down the track.
Yes.
Yeah.
No, seriously.
Absolutely. You guys ever get to perform live in the States or whatever, let us know. We'll be there fighting with a security guard to get backstage. And
you guys will be there, man. 2023, you will be in the green room.
Hell yes.
Absolutely.
Yeah, once you get all these 5 singles that you've already written, once you get all those out, and maybe we'll talk again.
Yeah.
By the way, those 40 demos with the other band, they're all scrapped. So
Right.
we're at ground zero right now, fellas. So
Got it. Yeah. Got it.
Guys,
All right.
Thanks
Yeah.
so much. This has been.
thanks a lot, fellas. Really appreciate it.
Yeah.
Yeah. It's been fantastic. Thanks, guys.
Thanks, guys.
Have a
All
good
right.
time.
All
Bye.
right. Take care.
Cheers. Bye.